Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants hangout today. My name is Joe Grabowski. I'll be your host, and I'm very excited to be joined by Leah Neal, Director of Husbandry at Ripley's Aquarium of Canada in Toronto, Ontario. And she's got a special treat in store for us today, but I'll let her take over and show you what we're up to.
Okay. This morning I'm with one of our aquarists, Dave. He's going to be feeding our bonnethead sharks in our Stingray Bay tank this morning. See if I can get Dave in the picture. Say hey, Dave. So in this exhibit, we've got, how many bonnetheads now? 6. There's 6 bonnethead sharks. They may look a lot like hammerheads, but they're not. They're actually called bonnethead sharks, a cousin to the hammerhead. We got one swimming along here. They get much, much smaller. The ones we have are full grown. They're all female. And these sharks actually were trained to a target. So let me see if I can see. Dave's got the target here. The little yellow target. And they know that they're supposed to come and touch it before they get food, as do the cow nose rays, which is what you see swimming here. They also know that food comes from the target, but they're not supposed to eat. So Dave's not going to feed them. They get fed later by our divers. We got one bonnethead thinking about it.
Yeah, they're getting capelin and herring today. See that right there?
I don't know if you can hear Dave, but he says they're getting capelin and herring today.
Yep. It's not their favorite food, so it might take a little longer to get them to come over.
And he says it's not their favorite, so it might take them a little longer to come over.
They cooperated yesterday. So.
One of their favorites is squid. It's not a squid day. So we feed them every morning, obviously. We try to do that before the visitors come in. In this area, I'm going to back up and see if you can see kind of the whole thing. In this area, it's a wide open area. We have a nice shallow end that our visitors can come and feel like what it's like to touch a stingray if the stingrays come close. Some people tell us it's a lot like touching a wet mushroom, but I don't know. Everybody has their own description, I guess. But there's a deep end as well, so if the rays don't feel like being touched, they can go and swim in the deep end, and they can swim away and do what they do. We've also got one of our spotted eagle rays swimming up here. Really pretty animal. We've got 3 of those. They're fairly new for us. They came here in July. One of our big southerns just swam by, but I think it's too far away for you guys to see. But here's the eagle ray again. Eagle ray also knows that food is in the water. Everybody but the bonnetheads, of course. The eagle rays are also target trained. They are fed by our divers twice a day. Oh, here comes the bonnethead. Little target touching. And there we go. These little sharks do have pretty razor sharp teeth. They're pretty small. They're not the big teeth that you think of when you think of a great white shark. They're meant to capture their food and then they eat it whole. Now they're getting a little excited here. So we feed them generally a percentage of their body weight. These guys, like I said, we feed every day just so they're not worried about fingers and whatnot when people are sticking their hands in the tank. But generally, sharks in the wild will eat lots when they can find it. So they may find one meal like every 3 weeks, and they're going to eat as much as they can, and then they might not eat again for another month. The eagle ray says, I know. These sharks are interesting because they need to keep swimming in order to breathe. Not all sharks need to do that. The sharks that need to do that are called obligate ram ventilators. They're your pelagic sharks, like your great whites, your makos, these bonnetheads, hammerheads. But we have a couple of different types of sharks in our bigger shark exhibit that actually can sit on the bottom and breathe just fine. They have a muscle that's called the spiracle. It's right behind their gill slits. And it pulls water over their gills, and that allows them to get oxygen to breathe. So those are the nurse sharks that we have in our larger exhibit. And also the sand tigers. Even though they're almost always swimming, they still can sit on the bottom if they need to and be just fine. Come on, buddy. There we go. Now you can see everybody here is pretty excited that there's food in the water now. Most of these animals can smell food or they can sense food. The sharks have something special called ampullae of Lorenzini that allows them to detect kind of electrical impulses to detect their food. Right now they're relying on their sense of smell, however, and sight because they're seeing the target. But so is everybody else, so it makes it a little bit of a challenge. Oh my God.
Lee, are you ready for some questions?
Sure, go for it.
All right. So some of the classrooms managed to get in, and so this is such a treat. I had no idea that you were going to be able to do a feeding for us this morning. So that's awesome. I knew we get to see, some of the animals in action, but this is really cool. So thank you so much. This is a real treat. Let's jump to, we've got a group joining us in Florida from Kids Work USA. I'm going to turn their microphone on so that they can ask a couple questions. All right, good morning, Florida gang. Do you guys have a question?
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, if you're asking the question, we just can't hear you. If you can come closer to the microphone.
Okay.
Sorry, guys, try that one more time. We didn't get it.
Raise up their food before they eat it.
Are you asking what they do to their food before they eat it?
Yes.
Okay. What do we do to the food before they eat it? So the first thing, when we get food in, it's all frozen already, and that's to get rid of any bacteria or any parasites that the food might have. We don't want to give that to our animals. So it's frozen. And then what we do is we thaw it out the night before. And then depending on the size of the food, I think you saw Dave showed you some capelin earlier. That's a whole fish. It's fairly small. So we can feed that whole. And then sometimes it's a bigger fish, like what he's got right now is herring. And that's a bigger fish. So we're going to cut that up into chunks so they can eat it better. And then a lot of times, especially for the sharks and rays, we give them vitamins, just like you probably have vitamins in the morning. So do they. So it helps get them all the nutrition that they need to be nice and healthy.
All
right, great question. Kids Works in Florida. Do you guys have one more quick question?
Yes. Yes. How many species? Yeah. How many species?
I heard how many species? That's about it.
Aquarium.
How many species at the aquarium?
Yeah.
Okay. How many species at the aquarium? Right now, we're at about 130 different species and approximately 16,000 different animals. Well, not 16,000 different animals, 16,000 animals total, about 130 different kinds.
Wow, that's amazing. It's such a beautiful aquarium. I had the pleasure of being there this summer with my little guy. It really is an amazing facility. We have Mr. Steltman's grade 6s joining us in Oakville. Do you guys have a couple questions?
Yeah, I think we do. Ramesa, did you want to ask your question? You can come up here if you want. There's the camera.
How long does an average shark, a bonnethead shark, live?
That's a good question. How long does an average bonnethead shark live? The sharks are different, but generally speaking, we know that bonnethead sharks can live between 15 and 20 years.
All right, great question. You have another one?
Yeah, quick.
What?
There you go.
Why do the stingrays use the target system?
So the stingrays don't actually use it. They just know that's where food comes from. The reason that we use the target system is that so that we can know each individual shark has gotten some food. So we can tell them apart individually on how they look. And they also have, what's interesting, but you can't tell from the surface, is they have what's called a pit tag. It's kind of like a microchip that you might have, some of your pets might have that. And we have a scanner so we can scan them and read them and make sure we have the right individual. But we want to make sure that they're getting enough food, healthy. So that's why we use the target. They have to come over, and that way we know they're eating. If we just throw food into the water, then we don't actually know which ones are eating and which ones don't. For the stingrays, the divers, we have a team of divers that actually get in 3 to 5 times a day, and they come in with a certain amount of food and they'll feed to the stingrays. Now, the bigger stingrays we know apart very, very well. Some of the cow nose, it takes a lot of work to get to know them. The eagle rays we also know very well. So the eagle rays get fed individually and the rest of them get a group of food, but the divers go in and hand feed them all individually, so we make sure we know who's eating and who's not. Since we don't want to hand feed the bonnet heads, the target system is the best for us. Great question.
All right, great question. Thanks, grade 6s in Oakville. We have a class in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Mrs. Poirier, let me turn your microphone on. Can you guys hear us? All right.
Right?
So I know you were having a bit of trouble signing in this morning. If you can hear us, please send me a question via email, and then we'll definitely make sure that we get to your question. I'm going to jump to Mrs. Tate's group. Morning, guys.
Hi. Morning.
All right, so you guys are joining us from Masstown, Nova Scotia, grade 4-5s. Go ahead with a couple questions for Leah.
All right, next.
Will stingrays injure each other if they think that one of their other kind is threatening them?
So I didn't hear that whole question. You want to say that one more time for me?
Will stingrays injure each other if they think they're threatened by one another?
Oh, that's a good question. So stingrays in general only use their barbs for defense, and not generally with each other. That's usually with predators, something that might try to eat them. In this exhibit, because we do allow people to touch them, we actually go in and we clip their barbs when they're getting long. So it's just like clipping your fingernails. It doesn't hurt them. They do grow back, but we do that to make sure that nobody accidentally gets stung. When the divers go in, the divers are presenting food to the animals, so they don't feel threatened. They allow the animals to come to them. So it's a nice, easy relationship. When we're going in to try to catch the animals for barb clippings or things like that, that's when we want to make sure we've had the barbs clipped, or we'd be very, very careful.
All right, go ahead with another one.
Have any kind of species died in the aquarium?
Sometimes it happens, very rarely, but it does happen. We have a veterinarian that comes in and works with us. So she comes in every other week, and we try to, whenever we see that an animal is sick or injured, we can offer it medication. Sometimes we do baths. It's not quite like putting a Band-Aid on it because they're not on land, but we can do certain baths or give them antibiotics to make sure they're all better. We can remove them from the exhibit and isolate them if we have to. So sometimes it happens, but we try to keep that from happening the best that we can. Are there more questions?
We have another question. I think Joe might be frozen on his end. Just 1 second. Go ahead.
What is the oldest species in the aquarium?
I heard, what is the oldest species at the aquarium?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. That's a good question. What do you think the oldest is? Queensland, maybe?
Yeah, maybe actually.
Okay. So Dave and I were conferring. We think probably our Queensland grouper. It's a really large grouper weighing in at almost 400 pounds. We guess that animal probably, what do you say, like 40, 50?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, 40 to 50 years old. It's really hard to tell the age of animals unless you've been with them since they were born. So we do have some cow-nose rays. Actually, you can see them, these little guys up here, that were born at the aquarium last year. So we know that they're just about a year old. They haven't quite hit a year old yet. So we know those animals when they're born. But if they came to us from the wild, we don't necessarily know. We can only do estimates based on their size.
Wow.
Drive by.
Hi, can we ask one more question?
Sure.
Go for it, Kate.
So how do like the different species of sharks and like stingrays and all that stuff, like how do they like exhibit?
And welcome to Ripley's Aquarium Canada.
I didn't hear the last part of that question.
So how do like the different species of sharks and stingrays sort of like work together or like a body of water?
How do they work?
Like
how do they work together? Was that your
like
question?
how do they work together? Like
I can't hear the end of your question. I can only hear the first part of it.
What's the relationship between stingrays and sharks? Like, is it like biodiversity-wise?
Oh, gotcha. So the relationship between sharks and rays, it's all a balance, right? So you have sharks as generally your apex predators, and your rays are somewhere in the middle. If that gets out of balance, like there are not enough sharks because people are killing them for finning. A lot of people will take the fins of sharks for shark fin soup and things like that. So if there aren't a lot of sharks, then the ray population gets out of control. And then they eat all the oysters and the things that we like to eat in the invertebrates. And then there aren't enough of those. So it's all a balance, okay? So you have to have, you know, enough sharks to help keep the stingray population in check. They will eat them in the wild. And then there aren't a lot of stingrays to eat all the invertebrates. So it's all a balance. In the exhibit, I can't say they work together too much. Usually it's, if the stingrays spit out food, the sharks might come and swoop in and get it.
That's a good question.
Hey, buddy.
Hey guys, sorry, can you still hear me?
Yep.
All right, we had our internet totally drop at the school, so
oh dear,
I've had to plug in manually, but I saw on YouTube that you were continuing with the questions, so that's amazing. Thank you so much.
Cool. No problem.
Which classes did you get to? Did you manage to get some from each of the groups?
I believe so. Did we miss anybody?
Okay, just let me double check.
Okay.
Mr. Steltman, did you have a chance to ask another question?
Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Perfect. Let me check with our group in Florida. Did you guys get a chance to ask another question?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. and let's check in Nova Scotia. Did you guys get a chance?
That's it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Oh, and then look, I can see our group here. If they have to keep moving, how do they hibernate? So that's coming from Halifax.
So sharks don't actually really hibernate, but they can kind of slow their body system, so they can be like in a sleep while they keep swimming. And then there are some, like the cow nose rays, that will actually lay on the bottom and go to sleep.
All right. And if you have one more question, hold it up there. Oh, you got to zoom in for me. Oh, there we go. What is the biggest species of shark?
The biggest species of shark is the whale shark. So a lot of people don't think of it necessarily like a shark because they don't have the big teeth and they don't eat fish really. They eat plankton. They open their mouths really, really big, and they eat plankton kind of along the surface of the water. That is the biggest species of shark. Uh-oh. Hour awake.
All right. Well, I'm glad that worked out. We had a slow start this morning, and then getting kicked off in the middle of a hangout's never fun. But I'm glad you were able to continue and get those questions. And what a special treat to get to see this morning. Leah, I can't thank you enough.
Yeah, no problem, guys.
All right.
Have a great morning.
Excellent. Well, I know the aquarium opens in a couple of minutes, and then most of us are getting started with our school day. So again, I want to thank you. I'm going to turn the microphones on so the classes can say goodbye and thank you. And then I can't wait for our hangout next month.
Yeah, sounds great.
Thank you.
So classes, go ahead.
Bye.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time around.